Why was this happening to me? It was the question I asked myself as I was laying on the concrete floor of a pizzeria. I had just been attacked physically by somebody else, assaulted. My head was cracked open, and I was laying there with blood all over my hands. Life is so interesting, and I believe so much of our life is based on the quality of the questions we ask. Why did this happen? Why was this happening? How come this happened to me? How come it didn't happen to somebody else? Right? Now, when we think about our mindset, we can either have a fixed mindset or we can have a growth mindset. And the science of Carol Dweck, her research is really fascinating when it investigates these two types of mindsets. Because the fact of the matter is, friends, our mind is always evolving. So for those people that say, oh, I'm just going to keep my mind staying the same, that's actually not true. Because if you're not growing, you're actually dying. So what's up, guys? Corey Beth here today to talk about your mindset. Is it growing? Is it dying? And I do want to take you back to this moment in 2010. It was one of the lower points of my life. I'd been physically assaulted by another woman. She had grabbed me from the back. Maybe you guys have heard the story. Maybe you haven't. She threw me on the ground. My head was cracked open, and I was rushed to the emergency room. Mike and my dad both got a call at 2:00 in the morning to come and get me hours away. And they never got to any destination as fast as they did that night. But it was really interesting when I started to examine the questions that I was asking about my life and the things about it. And this 13 months of my life drove me so deep into understanding mindset and psychology. In fact, that's what I studied in college. My major was psychology. So to understand why the human brain thinks what it does and how it thinks what it does and how we can change the way that our brain thinks. Well, a lot of this started, honestly, when I was probably 8 years old. I was fascinated with psychology from then. So I guess you could pretty much say this has been a lifelong journey. But those 13 months of my life after I was diagnosed with a post-concussive syndrome, couldn't go back to work, was laying at home with terrible migraines and headaches, it pushed me deep into this field. And so the question that I have for you is, what questions are you asking yourself about your life? Now, grab out your pens and paper if you can. That would be awesome. It's a great exercise. You can come back and watch this later. But what questions are you asking about your life? Are you saying things like, how come? Or why did, or why don't, and then you fill in the blank. Like, how come this happened? Why did that happen to me? Why doesn't anything good ever happen to me? Or why don't those awesome things happen to me? If those are your questions, I'm here to tell you that those are fixed questions. That's a fixed mindset. It's almost like we can look at measures going forward, like a lead measure, or we can see it after the fact. It's like a lag measure. Those are like lag questions. That's fixed mindset questioning. And those are a lot of the questions that I use, which is why I can come to you and talk about that, because I was there. So think about your nutrition. Like, how come my workout never seems to make a big difference? Or why don't my clothes fit any differently on me right now? Or why is it so hard for me to plan my meals? That's all fixed. That's a dying mindset, guys. The flip of that is, how can or how will? That's one of my favorite questions. Like, how can I fill in the blank, right? Because your brain wants to solve problems. That's the purpose of the human brain. It wants to solve problems. So when you present it with a problem, like, how can I get 3 workouts in this week? You're going to figure it out. How can I get a healthy plan set up for my family this week, or just for myself? You'll figure it out. How will I get to that goal weight? How will I feel more energized? How will I have more energy going into my day? Those are growth mindset questions. Those are growth mind thinking questions, because it challenges us to grow. So think about your own thinking. This is something I love to do a lot. Think about what you think about. How are you thinking? Are you thinking how come, why did, why don't? Or are you thinking how can, how will? Examine yourself and drop me in the comments. Are you fixed? Are you dying? Are you growth? Are you growing? Which are you? Now, I was fixed. I was fixed for a while. I'm like, oh, this is as good as I'll ever get at this sport. And by sport, I mean skiing, because I didn't actually play sports ever. I ran track for a semester. I don't even know if that counts. I don't think so. But this is as good as I'll get, or this is as much as I'll know, or this is as whatever as, that's kind of how I thought for a while. And I want to tell you that this was really a pivotal point in my life. In fact, it was preceded by a fractured nose, and a rear-ended car accident where I had herniated L4, L5, S1 vertebrae in my back. So 3 traumatic events. What do they say about bad things? They come in threes. Those 3 events literally put me out of work. I mean, it was the head injury that really did it, but it put me out of work to a point where I was really stuck with myself, examining what I was thinking about. And I think oftentimes we just get so into like the default of our day, we don't even think about what we're thinking about. We just allow the thoughts to happen, and we don't realize how crappy of a quality some of the thoughts and questions that we ask ourselves actually are. So what are the questions you're asking yourself right now? And if you're like, Corbeth, I don't really know, I can't think about that, then fine, write this down. How can I, and draw a line? How will I, and draw a line? And what I want you to do right now, this is your action item, take the thing that you've been struggling with and write it on the line. Maybe you have 5 pounds left to lose. Maybe you have an inch. Maybe you have a size. Maybe you have a bathing suit you want to fit into. Maybe you have a wedding or a vacation that you're going to. Like, how can I feel the best I've ever felt going to this event? How can I walk into this event with the most confidence I've ever had? Your brain is going to seek to solve that problem. That's a problem, right? It's a problem. And sometimes it happens in the morning when you're in the shower. I mean, that's like the best place to think, because I think we get really creative. We're very calm. We're not distracted. We don't have our phone dinging and binging, until they make like waterproof, phone sleeves. I'm sure that's not far off, by the way. You heard it here first. But we're less distracted in those places. Or maybe when you're waking up or you're falling asleep at night. When you have those thoughts, I'm going to encourage you to write them down, because oftentimes great thoughts, great ideas, innovative thinking happens in the time and the space that we're not distracted. And that's something that I'm working on actually right now. I'm working on carving out more pockets in my day where I can be more creative, because I love my brain when it gets to be creative, but oftentimes it's so caught up in the appointment, the call, the appointment, the call, the appointment, the call, right? And so to have that space to do that for ourselves, I want to encourage you. And I'm going to set that from a goal as my own goal as well this week. Try to find 1 30-minute block throughout the course of 7 days, just once, just one. And really answer those questions. How can I? How will I? How can I do this? Because you will figure it out. One of the coolest things about us as humans, guys, is we are so resourceful. We can figure pretty much anything out. We figured out how to get ourselves underground. We figured out how to get ourselves up in the air, in flight. We figured out how to build buildings differently. We figured out how to make wire-free technology, right? That's Wi-Fi. That's wireless technology. That's so amazing. And now we're talking about space travel, right? There's Space Force. That's actually a branch of our military, by the way. A lot of people don't know that. We actually just had Richard Branson, get it right, Corbeth, with Virgin. They just went into outer space. It was like the first non-commercial space flight. That was so cool. That just happened a couple of days ago. Look at what we're figuring out, because we don't sit around saying like, how come? Why did? Why don't? We're going, how can? How will? How can we put people on Mars? I don't know. There's other people trying to figure that out right now, not me. Maybe you're part of that. That's pretty freaking cool. But let's start with ourselves first, right? Because we can help create more freedom in other places and spaces in the world once we create freedom within ourselves. We have to set ourselves free from our bad habits, from our lies, from our faulty belief. We have to do it for ourselves first before we can go out and do it for the rest of the world. So ask yourself, how can I fill in your blank? How will I fill in the blank? And let me know. I'm so excited to hear what it is that your brain is going to start figuring out today on how you can get better, do better, be better, give better, and take on your life better. Because when we feel better, we are better. That's a fact. So is your brain growing or is it dying? Because it's never staying the same. Staying the same, it's dying. So growth mindset. How can I? How will I? You can figure it out. Have an awesome day, friends. We'll see you back here tomorrow.